Let me tell you something we often forget in a world obsessed with hacks and hustle. Self-discipline doesn't start with strategy. It doesn't start with a checklist, a planner, or an app. It starts with something far more powerful, something invisible but undeniable. It starts with why. The reason so many people struggle with self-discipline isn't because they're lazy or flawed or lack grit. It's because they're chasing behavior without first connecting to belief. They're trying to control their actions without first understanding the deeper reason they should. And if we're being honest, it's really hard to keep showing up to a task, to the workout, the budget, the study session, the cold call, if you don't feel something meaningful pulling you toward it. We are wired to respond to purpose. It's not just a nice idea, it's human nature. When we know why we're doing something, really know, we start to feel accountable to it, we treat it with respect, we show up not because someone's watching, not because there's a prize, but because there's a principle. That's the fuel of real self-discipline. Not guilt, not pressure, but a genuine connection to something bigger than the moment. Let's say someone wants to wake up at 5 a.m. every day to exercise. That's a noble goal. But if the reason is because successful people do it, or because I read it in a productivity book, it won't last. Maybe a week, maybe 2. But the minute the weather gets cold or the bed feels too comfortable, that shallow reason gets buried under convenience. The why wasn't strong enough. So now imagine someone else waking up at 5 a.m., not to be productive, but because they've just become a parent and they want to be healthy enough to see their daughter graduate college. That's not a routine. That's a mission. That's not a task. That's a commitment to someone they love. The alarm clock becomes a reminder, not a burden. The cold floor becomes a choice, not a punishment. That's the difference purpose makes. We need to stop treating discipline like it's only about saying no. No to distraction, no to junk food, no to procrastination. It's not just about what we resist, it's about what we say yes to. Yes to our potential, yes to our values, yes to the person we're trying to become. Saying no gets easier when the yes is louder. But here's where it gets real. Purpose doesn't just land in our lap. We have to dig for it. It takes time and honesty to uncover the reason that makes the effort worth it. Ask yourself, what do I truly care about? What am I working toward that's bigger than today's discomfort? Who benefits if I succeed? Not just me, but who else? If we can attach a personal mission to every habit we're trying to build, discipline becomes less of a grind and more of a form of devotion. Think about the most disciplined people you know. They aren't immune to distraction. They aren't perfect. What they have, without fail, is a clear connection to why they do what they do. A deep emotional anchor. It could be their kids, their community, a vision of the future that matters so much they refuse to let it die on the altar of convenience. That's what gives them strength when motivation fails. That's what keeps them moving when it would be so easy to stop. There's a phrase I love, discipline is remembering what you want. And not just remembering it once, but reminding yourself of it every single day. Because let's face it, life is noisy. We're constantly being pulled in 1,000 directions. It's easy to forget. So we need rituals. Not just routines, but rituals, actions infused with meaning. Maybe it's reading your mission statement every morning. Maybe it's writing a note to your future self. Maybe it's putting a photo of your family on your desk. Whatever helps you remember why you started, that's your anchor. We're often told just be disciplined, but we're rarely told how to find the strength to be disciplined. And the truth is, it's not a hack. It's not a shortcut. It's a mindset, a perspective shift. Instead of thinking, I have to do this, we start to think, I get to do this because I care about what's on the other side. That's a different energy entirely. That's not force, that's alignment. When your why is clear, discipline stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like devotion. You're not sacrificing, you're investing. Every action becomes a brick in the foundation of something you believe in. Every repetition becomes a vote for the kind of person you want to be. And over time, that builds a kind of confidence no one can take from you. Here's the powerful truth. Self-discipline is not about suppressing desire. It's about elevating it. It's about trading short-term pleasure for long-term purpose. But in order to do that, we need to know what that long-term purpose is. And that's why we begin not with the action, not with the tactic, but with the why. So before we write down the 7 techniques or the 10 steps or the morning routines, we pause, we ask the real questions. Who do I want to become? What matters to me more than comfort? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? Because when you answer those questions with honesty and courage, discipline won't feel like a chore anymore. It will feel like a calling. And when your discipline is rooted in purpose, it becomes unstoppable. We tend to look at disciplined people as if they're born different. As if there's some gene they have that the rest of us missed. You know the type. The ones who get up at dawn, eat clean, finish their work ahead of schedule, hit the gym like clockwork, and somehow seem immune to distraction. It's tempting to assume they just have something we don't. But that assumption is part of the problem. The truth is, self-discipline is not a personality trait. It's not a gift or a genetic code. It's a choice. One that is made not once, but over and over, every single day. And that's both the good news and the hard truth. Because if it's a choice, it means we all have access to it. But if it's a choice, it also means we're responsible for making it. Discipline isn't something you have. And the people who appear to be naturally disciplined, they're not running on some endless fuel tank of motivation. They've just accepted a different truth, that consistency beats intensity. They understand that discipline isn't about doing extraordinary things once in a while. It's about doing ordinary things consistently, even when it's hard, especially when it's boring. Every time we choose the harder right over the easier wrong, we strengthen that muscle. Because that's exactly what self-discipline is, a muscle. And like any muscle, it doesn't grow from thinking about it. It doesn't grow from wishing it were stronger. It grows from being used, from repetition, from resistance, from showing up. Let's be honest. The temptation to wait for the perfect mood or ideal energy level before taking action is universal. We've all said it, I'll start when I feel ready. But the most disciplined people don't wait to feel ready. They show up when they don't want to. They act despite resistance. Not because they're superhuman, but because they've realized that the act of showing up is what makes the readiness happen. Associate discipline not with punishment, but with identity. They no longer ask, do I feel like doing this today? Instead, they ask, what would the person I want to become do right now? And then they do that thing. Not because it's easy, but because it's aligned. See, the question isn't, can I be disciplined? The real question is, am I willing to act in alignment with who I say I want to be, even when it's uncomfortable? Because let's be honest, there is always a gap between our intentions and our actions. Discipline is what bridges that gap. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but persistently. Think about anyone who's achieved mastery in their craft. Athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, teachers, leaders, their success wasn't born in grand moments, it was built in invisible ones. In the early mornings, the quiet evenings, the skipped shortcuts, the tiny acts of commitment that no one else saw. That's what discipline really looks like. Not dramatic, but deliberate. And here's something we rarely admit. Discipline is not always glamorous. In fact, most of the time it's profoundly unsexy. It's choosing water over soda. It's writing another paragraph when you'd rather scroll your phone. It's stepping outside for a run when the couch is calling your name. These aren't moments that get applause, but they're the moments that build integrity. Because here's the thing, discipline isn't just about achievement, it's about integrity. It's about keeping the promises you make to yourself when no one is watching. And when you start to see it that way, something shifts. It's no longer about grinding your way to success. It's about honoring yourself, about acting in a way that aligns with your values, your goals, and your identity. You might stumble, you might miss a day or 10, but discipline doesn't mean perfection. It means returning, it means recommitting, it means getting back up and doing the thing again and again, because it matters to you. The act of recommitting is discipline. It's not how often you fall that defines your strength, it's how often you get back in the ring. We live in a world obsessed with fast results. We want instant transformation, overnight success, but real growth doesn't happen in a flash. It happens in the quiet, in the repetition, in the seemingly insignificant daily decisions that add up over time. The question is not how disciplined you are today, it's whether you're willing to show up again tomorrow. And here's what might be the most powerful part of all. The more you practice self-discipline, the less it feels like resistance. The more you act in alignment with your values, the more natural those actions become. What felt like effort becomes rhythm. What once felt like struggle becomes part of your story. And that's when you realize discipline didn't change you, it revealed you. The person you're trying to become, they're already inside you. But that version of you isn't revealed by talk or intention. It's revealed through action. Consistent, intentional action that reinforces who you want to be. That's how you grow trust with yourself. That's how you become someone who believes in their own potential, because you've lived it. So no, you don't need to be born with discipline. You need to practice it, choose it, work with it, not against it. One day at a time, one choice at a time. You might not always feel like it, but the beautiful part is you don't have to. You just have to keep showing up. That's the truth about self-discipline. It's not an identity. It's not a secret code. It's a practice. And every single day you get another chance to choose it. We give willpower far too much credit. We talk about it like it's the ultimate force behind change, like it's the fuel we need to push through distraction, temptation, and procrastination. But here's the truth most people miss. Willpower is limited. It's like a battery that drains over the course of the day. The more decisions you make, the more temptations you resist, the weaker that battery gets. And then what happens? We start to slip. We scroll instead of work. We skip the gym. We reach for the food we swore we wouldn't touch, not because we're broken, but because we are relying on something that was never meant to carry the full load. That's where environment steps in. If you look closely at people who seem incredibly disciplined, you'll notice something interesting. Their lives are designed for success. They don't wake up each morning ready to fight off 100 distractions. They've already removed most of them. They've designed their space, their schedule, and their systems to support the person they want to be, not sabotage it. It's not that they have more willpower than the rest of us. It's that they have to use it less. There's something powerful about understanding this, because once you stop blaming yourself for every lapse in discipline and start recognizing the role of your environment, you gain leverage. You realize that changing your behavior doesn't always require more effort. Sometimes it just requires better design. If you think about your phone, if the first thing you see when you unlock it is a social media app, guess what you're going to tap on? It's not about weakness, it's about ease. Our brains are wired to go where the path is smoothest. So what if instead the first thing you saw was a journal app or your to-do list or a quote that reminds you of your goals? Suddenly, discipline isn't about fighting the impulse. It's about reshaping the default. Or consider your physical environment. If your workspace is cluttered, chaotic, full of distractions, your brain will reflect that chaos. But if it's clean, purposeful, and designed for focus, your energy will follow suit. If your kitchen is filled with junk food, you'll eat junk food. If your gym clothes are buried under a pile of laundry, you're less likely to work out. These aren't character flaws, they're environmental cues. And cues matter more than we think. There's a principle in psychology called choice architecture. It means the way choices are presented affects the decisions we make. Supermarkets do this all the time, putting candy at eye level or playing certain music to influence mood. But here's the exciting part. You can be your own architect. You can redesign the choices you see every day. Make the healthy option the easy one. Make the productive habit more accessible. Make the distractions harder to reach. Want to read more? Leave a book on your pillow. Want to work out in the morning? Lay your shoes and clothes by the bed. Want to stop doom scrolling? Delete the apps or set limits. These are small changes, but over time, they're the difference between friction and flow. And this doesn't just apply to physical space, it applies to people too. Who we surround ourselves with shapes who we become. If you spend your time with people who normalize distraction, who mock discipline, who avoid hard work, You'll slowly begin to mirror that mindset. Not because you want to, but because humans are wired for connection. We adopt the behaviors of the tribe to stay part of it. That's survival instinct. But if your environment includes people who push themselves, who value growth, who hold themselves accountable, then your standards begin to rise, not because of pressure, but because of proximity. You start to see effort as normal. You start to believe that doing hard things is not only possible, but expected. That's the power of a supportive environment. It doesn't demand your discipline, it inspires it. So maybe the question we need to ask ourselves isn't how can I be more disciplined, but rather what kind of environment am I creating, and does it support the person I'm trying to become? That's a question worth wrestling with. Because too often we set big goals while ignoring the systems around us. We decide to get serious about our work, but we keep our phones within arm's reach. We want to eat healthier, but we leave the pantry full of snacks. We say we want to change, but our environment stays the same. And when change doesn't come, we blame ourselves, thinking we just don't want it badly enough. But discipline doesn't mean white-knuckling your way through a minefield of temptation. It means setting yourself up to succeed. It means taking your future self seriously enough to reduce the friction between who you are now and who you want to be. It means building a world around you that helps you stay on track, even when your motivation dips. Because it will. And here's the thing. Motivation is emotional. It ebbs and flows. It comes in waves. But environment is structural. It stays. It holds steady when emotions don't. And that's what makes it so powerful. When you can't rely on how you feel, you can still rely on the systems you've built. So the next time you struggle to stay disciplined, stop and ask, is this a willpower problem or is this an environment problem? Most of the time, it's the second, and that's good news. Because unlike willpower, environment is something you can change right now. You can make one small shift today, move your phone charger out of your bedroom, clear your desk, rearrange your kitchen, curate your circle. These things are not dramatic, but over time, they make discipline easier. They make alignment possible. Because when your environment reflects your values, your behavior will follow, not because it has to, but because it wants to. And that's when discipline becomes natural, not a struggle, not a sacrifice, just a rhythm that supports the life you actually want to live. There's a myth we've bought into that discipline is all about logic, that it's cold, calculated, unemotional, that the people who are disciplined are somehow detached, always in control, never swayed by feelings. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Discipline doesn't happen in spite of emotion, it happens because of it. We don't make disciplined choices because we've removed emotion from the equation. We make them when we're emotionally connected to the outcome, when something matters to us on a deep level, when the goal isn't just something we think about, it's something we feel, it's personal, it's powerful, it's human. Because discipline isn't just about getting things done, it's about becoming someone. And who we choose to become is always tied to emotion, always. You can think about the times in your life when you've truly committed to something, a project, a routine, a habit, a promise. The energy didn't just come from logic, it came from something inside you that said, this matters. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was love, maybe it was pain. But it wasn't just a decision, it was a feeling. That's what real commitment is, an emotional contract we make with ourselves. And when that contract is signed with emotion, discipline follows more naturally. It's not about forcing yourself to stay on track, it's about wanting to. Not because it's easy, but because it matters too much not to. We all want to be more consistent, more focused, more productive, but those are surface goals. Beneath them is something deeper, the why that drives us. That's what emotion gives us access to. Emotion connects us to meaning. And when we're connected to meaning, our actions take on a different weight. Let's say you want to write a book. That's a goal. But goals alone rarely get us out of bed early or keep us typing when the words won't come. What moves us is something deeper. Maybe the need to tell your story, maybe the desire to leave something behind for your kids, maybe the hope that your words might help someone else feel less alone. That's emotion, and that's what fuels discipline when motivation runs dry. Because motivation is a spark. It's great when it shows up, but it's unpredictable. Discipline, on the other hand, is a fire you keep feeding. And emotion is the wood that keeps it burning. If there's no emotional connection to your goal, the fire dies out. But when the emotional stakes are high, when your heart is in it, you find a way to keep going, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when no one else understands. And let's be clear, emotion doesn't mean drama. It doesn't mean being overwhelmed or reactive. It means being rooted in why something matters to you. It means bringing your humanity into the process. You can be emotional and disciplined at the same time. In fact, the most powerful kind of discipline is the kind that comes from the heart. I've met athletes who trained through pain, not because they liked it, but because they were doing it for someone they loved. I've met entrepreneurs who worked through endless setbacks, not because they enjoyed the grind, but because they believed in their vision so deeply they couldn't walk away. I've seen teachers stay up late crafting lessons because they saw potential in a kid that no one else noticed. That's not logic. That's not calculation. That's emotion in its purest, most purposeful form. So if you're struggling to stay disciplined, don't just ask, what do I want to do? Ask, what do I feel connected to? Find the emotion behind the goal. Find the face behind the dream. Is it your family? Is it your future? Is it the version of you you're trying to prove something to? Or maybe forgive? Whatever it is, get close to it, name it. Feel it. Let it fuel you. Too often we try to discipline ourselves by beating ourselves up. We think that if we just apply more pressure, we'll perform better. But shame is not a sustainable motivator. Guilt is not a long-term strategy. What we need isn't more self-judgment. It's more self-connection. Discipline that comes from love. Love for our goals, for our people, for our potential. That's the kind that lasts. And let's not forget, emotion also helps us bounce back. We will fall short. We will miss days, skip steps, lose momentum. That's not failure. That's human. What brings us back is not discipline alone. It's remembering why we started. It's reconnecting to the emotion behind the effort. It's remembering what we care about and choosing again. That's the heart of resilience. Discipline without emotion is just obedience. It might work for a while, but eventually it runs out of steam. Real discipline, the kind that lasts, the kind that transforms us, is built on care, on commitment, on meaning. It's what happens when we connect our actions to something that matters to us on a deep human level. So don't try to feel less when you're working towards something. Feel more. Get closer to what lights you up, what breaks your heart, what keeps you awake at night. Let that be the thing that gets you moving in the morning, even when it's hard. Let that be your anchor when you want to quit. Let that be your reason when excuses start to sound convincing. Because in the end, it's not about being robotic or rigid. It's about being real. It's about doing the work not just because you should, but because it's connected to who you are. That's where discipline becomes less of a fight and more of a flow. That's where it stops being something you push yourself to do and starts being something you're called to do. When we stop separating discipline from emotion, we unlock a whole new level of strength, not just the strength to act, but the strength to keep acting again and again with purpose and passion. And that's the kind of discipline that doesn't just change your habits, it changes your life. There's something most people never learn about progress, and it's this. Self-discipline thrives when you track your progress and reflect on your journey. We often think discipline is about looking forward, about pushing through, grinding, showing up again and again. But the truth is, the fuel we need to stay consistent isn't just found in the vision of what we want to become. It's found in the memory of how far we've already come. You see, it's not just effort that keeps us going, it's evidence. When we're trying to build something new, a habit, a business, a life we're proud of, it's easy to get lost in the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And that gap can be intimidating. It can make us feel like we're not moving fast enough, like we're not doing enough, like maybe we're just not cut out for it. And when those thoughts creep in, discipline starts to erode. Not because we don't care, but because we lose sight of our progress. But when we pause to look back, when we document the work we've done, the decisions we've made, the small wins along the way, something powerful happens. We remember that we are moving. We remember that we can change. And most importantly, we start to believe that our efforts are making a difference. That belief, that sense of movement, is one of the greatest motivators there is. It turns discipline from a burden into a momentum machine. Tracking your progress isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about making your growth visible. Because growth, real personal internal growth, is often invisible to the eye. You don't wake up one morning with a neon sign flashing, "You're improving." It happens quietly, subtly, day by day, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You'll think you're standing still when in fact you're becoming someone entirely new. That's why reflection matters. That's why journaling matters. That's why measuring matters. It brings the invisible into focus. It gives you proof that change is happening even when you don't feel it. And sometimes when motivation disappears, as it always will, that proof is what gets you back on your feet. I've seen people change their lives not because they suddenly got more motivated, but because they kept a record, a simple notebook, a daily log, a photo album, a journal, some way to track the effort, not to impress anyone else, not to be perfect, but to remind themselves that the work they were doing had weight, that the person they were becoming was real. And when you start to track your progress, something else opens up. The opportunity to reflect, to learn, to adjust. Discipline isn't about rigid repetition. It's about intelligent repetition. If you do the same thing every day without pausing to ask if it's working, you might just be burning out instead of building up. But if you check in with yourself, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, you get to refine, you get to evolve. You might realize that your routine needs a shift. That the reason you keep missing that 5 a.m. workout isn't because you're lazy, it's because you're exhausted. Or that you do better with an evening walk. You might see that your most focused work happens not in long marathons, but in short 90-minute bursts. These aren't setbacks, these are insights, and you only get them if you reflect. Discipline that doesn't include reflection will eventually break. It will become mechanical, detached, joyless. But when you build in time to review, to learn, to ask, what's working, what's not, what am I proud of? Discipline becomes a dialogue, a relationship, not just something you force yourself to do, but something you understand and refine. I met someone once who wanted to lose 100 pounds. He started with the typical approach, strict diet, daily workouts, no days off. He was disciplined for a while. But what kept him going wasn't the weight loss. It wasn't the number on the scale. It was the habit he built of writing down one sentence every night. What did I do today that my future self will thank me for? Some days the answer was, I went for a walk. Some days it was, I said no to dessert. Other days it was, I rested. But every day he reflected. He created a thread that connected his effort to his identity. That thread became his lifeline. Reflection reminds us why we started. Progress reminds us that we're capable. The two together build a rhythm that is hard to break. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to keep moving and keep noticing that you're moving. And sometimes it's not just about noticing what you've done, it's about honoring who you're becoming. Because the truth is, every act of discipline is a vote for the person you want to be. And every time you reflect, you give yourself a chance to witness that transformation in real time. We don't just need to be disciplined, we need to see the results of our discipline. Even if the results are small, even if they're subtle, even if they don't look impressive to anyone else, because those small things, they build confidence, they build belief. And belief is what fuels the next step. So whatever it is you're working toward, track it, write it, speak it out loud. Capture the journey, not for the sake of performance, but for the sake of perspective. The more clearly you can see your progress, the more likely you are to keep going, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. Discipline doesn't grow from force. It grows from awareness, and awareness comes from reflection, from taking a breath, from paying attention, from giving yourself credit for the effort even when the outcome isn't there yet. That's how you build a discipline that lasts, not just by pushing harder, but by seeing clearer, by connecting the dots, by recognizing that you're further along than you think. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to yourself is not go faster, it's look how far you've come. And from that place, not guilt, not pressure, but pride, you'll find the strength to keep moving forward.